into this last one.
Yeah,
as they run out onto the rift.
We gotta not wear out one of our Germans' voices. But we need one of them on desk permanently. That's kind of the whole crux here at the VCS English. It's just to make sure that we have
part
one
of our
German
contract.
podcast. It is, yes. It's part of that same GAM contract that forces them to have like 18-minute games on average, or 24-minute games on average. It's the same union too. So we like to meet them for lunch. How do you think we got introduced to Henke actually?
Yeah, it's true. In the last time we didn't have Germans on desk, a man showed up with a baseball bat at my door. It was really scary.
That was me. That's how we met. It was great to meet you.
Oh man,
today's just been nothing but good. We have 3 Fleet Footworks on Sky too.
Yeah, they've got the dancing shoes.
They really do. We like sustain here apparently, so that's nice.
We do be sustaining. As early on, I don't know why we're looking at this mid lane. We could never look at this mid lane and miss nothing.
Yeah, it's karma. So I think we
this
know
is PvE.
Yeah, this is PvE for the most part. The only worst matchup that I think like I would never want to watch is like Karma versus Syndra. I've played that matchup competitively, and it's just boring. I was the one playing in it, and it was boring. I don't understand. So I love that Yowei talked about the fact that we have a bit of bunker potential that actually comes out from Cerberus. They can front to back really effectively. They have great flankers as well. They've got like reset potential. The Ari Viego is really weird because it's popped up around the world as 2 champions that both have resets with like the ultimates between the 2 of them. In tandem, being able to work those 2 together typically it involves somebody with a bunch of burst damage. Here, they don't have that as much. Like, Ari's got good burst potential, obviously, and like Artemis still has rockets and things to throw in. But when you throw it all together, I kind of wish that there was a champion with any sort of like execute or really big like kill potential in one fell swoop. Like it's consistent damage from Gwen and mostly from the other side of the map as well. And so I don't think it works as well as you would want it to when you've got basically 3 reset champions with the Jinx on the bottom side.
You know what I'm about to say? And it may well get my mic muted. I think Renekton would have been pretty good for that purpose.
Yeah.
Go in, one shot of Squishy, get a reset for 3 champions. It's pretty good.
You just need a large amount of chunk damage in one fell swoop.
Hang on.
No?
Good flash by Glory, but he can't dodge the Spectral Maw. He had just used that empowered Q as well, which means he doesn't have the empowered W. Goodbye.
Yeah, it's actually really funny because this also reminds me of the first game that I ever covered on desk, which was Glory versus Cotty, and he also was getting dumpstered in that game too when he was playing the Karma in that series. So it's a throwback type day, that's for sure.
Yeah, real nostalgia here in this series. As Almine gets a nice little route there on Toronto Pete, but none of that damage is going to stick. Drakthar was there in case any fight had started, but it didn't. So, in the end, not much happening as Ryuk is having a bad day.
Yeah, like I said, the previous 2 laning phases weren't too bad. I did actually really appreciate the first 5 to 10 minutes of that laning phase in the previous game, but Ryuk now, he's on the Gnar, he's against the Gwen. It's not a perfect situation to be against Pun, who absolutely popped off in the previous game. We're having some rough goes of it here in the top side here for Ryuk now, who's going to be in a much worse matchup now, as well as the fact that, again, we've got basically 2 farming junglers to work with, so it's a question of whose lanes go better. And when it's Aphelios Nautilus, I'm really not thinking bot lane's going particularly well. The Gwen isn't something that dies to Gnar all that often. In fact, it's quite the opposite most of the time, especially like when it's mini Gnar, if you can get on top of him, especially with the Ghost, then Pun's going to have an easy time in the laning phase. And so you have immediately winning side lanes now from the side of Cerberus with a farming jungler. So to me, there has to be some kind of setup that comes through from Sky with this mid-jungle combination, either attacking like Fook 1, attacking Yato, or being able to break out Karma so that you can actually have interactions inside of the jungle around neutral objectives or side lanes themselves.
Yeah, we'll have to see if they can actually nail that, because I think your analysis is right, but VCS teams often don't do it anyway. And we do get solo kills where solo kills shouldn't happen. But so far, it is very quiet. No summoners being burned other than teleports, which, fair enough. Those will be used, which is a bit strange. At 5 minutes in a VCS game, the only kill we've had is that mid lane one.
It's a little bit crazy, especially when you think about like who it was against, because it was against Glory on Karma, and it's like of all the people you think that a First Blood's going to go against, you wouldn't suspect that it would be against a Karma, but here we are. So it's really a strange place to be. Carrix, I'm going to be upset a little bit longer because I'm waiting for action to actually happen, so you can start screaming and I can start talking about it. Can we like Nautilus getting early picked is already something I hate. I'm going to wait for some action before I talk about this.
Glory using that speed boost really well there, kind of dip, ducked, and dived around everything. So in the end, he's okay, but that was close to disaster.
It was. Both sides actually had a good amount of hovering, with good on them to be able to actually protect Glory, because any further that the RE gets in a laning phase like this with advantage just immediately starts to break apart the whole reason you pick Karma, which is supposed to be lane control in its entirety. And if the auto all of a sudden gets all this massive wave clear breakpoint, then you're in very dire straits. I still want to talk about this because I'm upset that Elio picked a Nautilus as early as he did, but not only do I not like Nautilus as a champion, Elio's a Bard player, and they blind picked Braum in this game. Well, I guess they didn't blind pick it because it was into the Nautilus, but what a game this would have been for a Bard to be able to get roaming pressure and to be able to play into a Braum, which is a good lane for a Bard player who's especially talented. Elio never impresses me when he's playing things like Leona and Nautilus, but when he's playing Enchanters, he has good games. Like, I've seen him do it before on other champions. Where's your Bard? Please.
We made a whole content piece about how Elio's Bard was warping games positively for the team. But this was back in the day. He might actually have still been Lisa at the time. I'm not actually sure.
That's possible.
But there's a whole in hindsight on that. As the Dragon started up here for Cerberus, no response by Sky. They are just kind of caught flat-footed. They don't have time to respond.
Again, it's a game that I feel like plays out in the laning phases a lot more than both teams are actually, most of the time we're typically accustomed to. Is your screen frozen right now or lagging right now? Just want to make sure.
It's lagging. Yeah.
Okay, just making sure. I didn't want this to just be a me problem or just a you problem.
And
yeah, we're kicked out.
He's having trouble.
That's fine. That's fine. We're living here.
Yep. We got our cool little green orb with some robots. Oh, now we've got a cool little green orb with robots. You guys don't. So, yeah, we're better than you. This is a weird one. What's happened?
I don't know what this is, pretty much at all. Taking stock of what happened in the game just seconds ago, because there's barely been any action. Again, it's a lot of stuff that I expect inside the laning phase, so it's mostly support movement and jungle movement that I'm expecting a lot of, but especially because our junglers are really, really not that heavy gankers. Gank setup is available for both sides, but I'm not expecting too much in terms of like heavy ganking. I'm expecting more big fights to actually come about from the neutral objectives more than anything else. So yeah, we're still stuck at this very weird screen. We haven't even gotten the casters back on screen yet. So we're in a pretty strange place at the moment in terms of where this game is actually landed.
Yeah, it is a little bit weird. And the thing is, Rebel, whenever VATV has issues with their feed, we know the game's not paused.
Mm-hmm.
They always do this. So I want you to predict what the score is going to be when we get back into this game.
Oh, that's such a tough one.
It's even tougher because who knows when we're getting back in? Because right now, again, I don't know if production can cut to what we're seeing at the moment, just to show that we have no idea what's going on.
Yeah, there's not even a timer on screen. It is just
there is nothing. We just have
I'm really curious if there's actually a problem going on, or if they actually just accidentally switch the screen and don't realize it right now, which is a possibility.
You have just put the fear of God into me.
Okay. All right. Well, that's something. Yeah, I seem to remember there are a number of games, especially like not last split, but the split before in last spring, or even the split before. I seem to remember you were on a broadcast where like we jumped out and we were on break for like 15, 20 minutes, and we jumped back in, and it was like 40 minutes later in the game or something like that. We missed the entire game out of nowhere. So, yeah, things sometimes get a little bit wonky here.
Sometimes the issue with VATV that they sometimes had is they'll have a problem with their feed. And obviously, if they have a problem with their feed, that's our feed too. Mm-hmm. Nothing we can do. We do apologize with that. Mm-hmm. But we really don't have anything we can do. Sometimes their feed has an issue and they don't communicate it with the players, because in that situation, the player should pause. But we're just in Orb Town.
We are. We're just in Orb Town right now.
Oh, hang on. They've got something. Echo's on screen. What are we chrono breaking, son? Come on. Fill us in.
Okay. Well, this it's actually
really broken.
It is. I did not realize that the background of Echo's screen was this orb. What we've been looking at is actually the background of the Castrol Journey thing. So that's kind of crazy.
What we're going to do, because we don't know what's going on right now, we're going to go to a break. We're going to put up a break screen. And as soon as there's gameplay, we will be back. Apparently, on the V8 stream, they've just turned on music, so something's really broken. We'll give you an update when we have it. Don't worry, you're not missing any gameplay. As soon as the Rift is back, we'll be back. See you hopefully soon. Welcome back, everybody. We have sorted out the orb and we are back on Summoner's Rift. We were worried that we might have one of those situations where they didn't actually pause the game, but they did! Rebel, they're learning!
They are. They took some time to ponder their orb, and they were able to fix all of the problems without having to take too long. And they did it in a very timely manner, so good on them for being able to actually accomplish that feat. So we're right back into game, right where we left off. The dragon just got taken from Cerberus, for anybody that didn't know. But otherwise, it's a pretty quiet, pretty slow early game for the first 8 minutes here. Maybe perhaps the calm of the storm is upon us, or the eye of the storm is upon us, because there might be some action around the Rift Herald, because tends to be that likes to get flipped. But here, doesn't seem like anybody's making a really, really big movement towards it right now, so could just be continued of that quiet early game we started with.
Yeah, I mean, it would fit the VCS, these young millennial VCS players, all they know is ponder they orb, flip the herald, and die.
Facts.
We are past that 8-minute mark. No ADCs moving. Looks like Elio was going to move, but they've called it off, and now there's a reset coming in. I feel like Cerberus just get this objective.
Yeah, the wave was shoved in on bottom side, which means that the Braum and the Jinx are both able to actually get up to the top side of the map. In fact, actually, it's kind of nice from Rado B. He canceled his back to walk in with Jinx so that he could walk alongside the path that would be taken by Elio if Elio wanted to come up and contest.
Herald is now reset. I thought Fook had full control over the pit. I thought they were just going to kind of take it uncontested, but no. They move back, and we'll have to take a more ponderous route towards this one, because we have it Ophelio's hitting a tower. The longer that he is allowed to do this with a white gun, obviously the worse it gets.
Yeah, having the perfect gun setup for fighting on the bottom side of the map is not ideal. And then he also transitions into like green-white, which is another really good setup for being able to poke people underneath the tower. So it ended up being perfect gun setup here for the Aphelios and Amine on the bottom side. I really thought they were just going to hard commit for the Rift Herald because there was no movement from Elio, and I don't know that they saw that there was no movement from Elio, but they didn't see where Nautilus was at all. They just, I guess, weren't comfortable enough with the position that they were in. But I feel like with a Gwen, a Viego, and an Ahri in your back pocket with a Braum at the beginning of the game, you have so much kind of innate power in terms of dueling. Like if Rado P tags 2-3 people with concussive blows, that's a pretty one fight right then and right there. So I'm a little lost as to why they decided to bail on that topside fight, because I feel like Cerberus actually had a really good path into it. I know they maybe wanted to prevent Aphelios from picking up too many plates in exchange for everything because of how well Amine has been playing in a series like this, but they still lost a plate one way or another.
They did, and now the Herald is just going to nobody. Of course, there is a little bit of an expiry date on it. If you can't get it and then drop it before 14 minutes, it's just not that powerful an objective. Sky, I think, is more interested in just making sure Cerberus doesn't have it. Though it doesn't look like Draktar's actually started it. Is he just going to be able to take this uncontested?
It seems like it. No. I mean, it would be really easy for him to do that. He's just leaving. He shouldn't actually, though, right now. Like, I feel like he's got to push in top lane, actually, with Ryuk, and mid lane is like, it's Karma, so if Karma needs to ditch a wave, I feel like Karma should be okay just ditching a wave in order to come up into the river. So they had pressure here.
They did.
It's gone.
Particularly if Draktar is seen around this bottom side. I don't know if they saw his gas there. I don't think... Oh, maybe on that ward?
They might have just spotted... Yeah, they might have spotted it on the ward. He's already back in down there. Yeah, you're reading exactly what it looks like Sky is reading, because Draktar is right back to top side. He actually walked across the control ward into top river to start up the rift out. Looks like they're going to full commit to it.
Yeah, they're going to try and make this play, and they brute force it, but sometimes you just need to push the round peg into the square hole. Hello, chat. You're not meant to be there. As that is going to be a kill picked up. It's going to be plates for Artemis. And that's all going Cerberus's way.
Yeah, this was interesting because I think it was just so much chicken being played between Sky and Cerberus here for the topside Rift Herald play that eventually they got caught out. And again, the Jinx and the Braum are such a powerful duo on the bottom side of the map. Even without Fook 1, it would be difficult to try to prevent any sort of push from coming through. But with Fook 1, it's so easy to be able to capitalize on it. Now Artemis pulls an entire tower worth of plates and gold solo into a Jinx in exchange for the Rift Herald on the top side. So Draktar is going to have to try to make this work by getting a gank off into Pun. And that's if they don't just lose afterwards also. They burn the flash from Elio. Moonlight Vigil's going to have to be burnt as well, just to be a little bit of a deterrent because of how much Cerberus just won on that play.
It certainly is, but they are going to be able to drop down this threshold. I don't love the gold assignment going over to the Gnar, but they are going to be able to potentially crack the tower, which is obviously worth it. As Pun trying to clear it out, needs to be a little bit careful, but they're not actually going to go under the tower, so they managed to save it, and they, of course, got the first tower on the bottom side in the previous play, so this is all coming up Cerberus.
It is. Cerberus currently, not to mention, even if they get this full tower on top side, they split gold between Rakthar and Ryuk, if Pun is even going to let him take it, which I think eventually it is going to fall.
He clears another wave.
Oh my goodness, no way Pun actually made that work. Okay, so they're not going to lose the turret. And again, I was about to say, like, the tempo is an advantage of Cerberus because they were the first ones to deploy out of base because they got that bottom side play and they backed, and there was still nothing to happen from the side of Ryuk and Rakthar, and they can't take the turret fast enough. So now Jinx and Braum are going to show up on top side, and it's going to be near impossible to actually full take this tower. Glory is up here with the intention, I think, of just pushing in the wave to make sure that you can buy a little bit of time for, like, Aphelios to redeploy in topside here, or to make sure that they have the proper lane assignments where it needs to be. But this is a position... Oh, are they just going to... They just give the tower because there's no local goal, which is... it's not bad. Yeah, not a bad decision, actually. They split plates, 4 of them between Ryuk and Rakthar. And again, I like the gold on Rakthar. We've seen how powerful Graves can be inside of fights. I think it was earlier today that we saw how powerful a Graves can be in the hands of Kiaya. But... here, I think it's a great decision from Cerberus just to deny any additional gold that would go into the pockets of Sky.
Yeah, I really like it. You weren't going to be able to defend the tower. It was one auto attack from dead. Just let it go. That's now a lane that can potentially push in your favor, so you can catch as much farm as you like. And regardless, it is just mirrored as Almine could be in trouble as there's a collapse coming. Everfrost into Spectral Maw, into dead.
That was kind of
try
insane.
And collapse onto Fook, but he's a Viego that had access to a soul, so he's out of there.
Yeah, actually really impressive play from Yada right there, being able to set up with a combination of the Everfrost into the Charm and the rest of the CC that comes through from Fook 1. Gets a kill onto Artemis, or onto Aamine, my apologies, underneath of his mid tower, which is between 2 towers, and still Cerberus is able to enforce their willpower. It's a very slow early game from Sky. They really haven't been able to do anything to respond to what Cerberus has been attempting to do pretty much across the map in its entirety. And it means that, again, there's not really many lakes to stand on here if you're on the side, and they're just continuing on this mid-barrage. They're going to find another one.
Lovely hook from that stolen away Nautilus body. Yado lands the last little bit of damage, and Fook is living. He's a liver rebel.
The Moonlight Vigil had to be, like, pixels off of hitting right there. Right on top side, too. Or bottom side.
Pun V9 angle. Pun V9 angle.
Pun V9 angle. At minimum, it does drop basically an entire tower into Drakthar's pocket. No, the TP's gonna deny it. Oh, it's so tragic. Cerberus.
Drakthar in shambles.
Oh, the fan club searching for our toasters to the best of our abilities and unfortunately not able to get it. It's a position where Cerberus, again, they're enforcing their willpower really effectively at the beginning of this game, kind of being able to lean into using this Jinx effectively to move around the map. This is, again, a style of play that I really love with, like, a Caitlyn, but it works with Jinx too, because Jinx obviously scales incredibly well the same way that Caitlyn likes to get out of the mid game as fast as possible. And this is a situation where they've done that a couple of times with very powerful champions that have ways to, like, engage from a distance. You've got great pick tools from the Ahri, the Braum has shown that as well. And then, of course, on the opposite side of the map, again, if Pun is trading 1-for-1 every time the two champions interact between he and Ryu, when they're putting 2 members into that lane and denying towers, it's just like there's nothing to match from the side of Sky at all.
No, there absolutely isn't. Of course, one issue is that Cerberus didn't really get anything on their side of the play, so the status quo was mostly maintained, while they obviously want to be continuing to push their foot down on the gas. But hardly lethal, as in goes Yado. He starts the party. He gets them the kill. There's a steal away, but oh boy, that is a real dead Nautilus.
Actually, I want to give a bunch of props. Yeah, it was Viego, yeah. Give some props over to, I think, Ryuk in the midst of that fight for being able to punish the Viego in the midst of everything, because it was yet another pick that was just kind of getting dropped in. I do like to see the Nautilus continue to get attacked in a game like this, because the champion needs to not be picked as much as people actually like prioritized it, especially today. They're kind of killing me inside of this series. Left
45
right,
minutes
center.
a day on hook.
Yeah, 45 minutes, please. Yeah, kick it out. Make sure that nobody can actually pick it so we can get some better champions in the bottom lane role. But here, Sky's looking good.
Why have you gone over that wall, mate?
Contesting a little bit of vision, but they're just falling right into a
play. And now Pun should get traded back, so that's actually not terrible. This was just a bad number situation for Cerberus. They were a man down the whole time, but now that man is arriving. It's the Viego. As they get more CC in, they should be able to blow Elio up. That gives the reset over. If Fuchs wants to charge forward, and you know he does, there it is. Oh, it's back away. I got very worried for a moment. But this should be Cerberus picking up the Dragon, and once again, they are on a very early soul point.
Little too far up into this one. Again, Sky kind of encroaching into territory that they should not be in. Right there, Drakthar getting caught out. Did get traded, because again, you have to put members in. Oh, that's a big...
Someone said in our chat, and I know who it was a community member, so I'm not going to flame them, that, man, Yado's a little bit washed up. He's been terrible recently. I think he might have been reading chat, because he's looking pretty good.
The thing about Yado that I've noticed consistently is that he's one of the first to adapt to the meta in the mid lane, which I can appreciate. Here, again, Drakthar just contesting vision, I think, unnecessarily. They take the fight afterwards, which actually ends up being good. Elio's hook on the Pun does cost them at least one. He gets a kill into the back of Aamine. Ryuk was Megadar here. I was a little curious, but no flash and no way to actually get in to use that Gnar ultimate was kind of a cost loss, and he lost a good amount of his health on his way in as well. So it was a difficult fight to take in the grand scheme of things because of the tools that had been lost already from Sky, and they had no way to contest Dragon because they had no smite. But like I was saying about Yado, again, he was really the first one to pick up Vex. He was one of the best Aries that we saw basically on spawn immediately. He's more of our standard mage player, and so when these mages kind of get dropped in the midst of the meta, especially like really big influential ones like the Vex and like the Ahri, when you have dive potential like this, there's so much value that Yado brings to your team. So yeah, there are situations in which Yado looks a little bit weak. That game one wasn't particularly good looking from Yado, but when he's on things like the Ahri, like the Vex, and especially when they're fresh champions that are stepping into the meta, he oftentimes is the first one that can bring them to the forefront, which is something that is incredibly valuable and not spoken about very often about Yado.
Yeah, it is very true. He is such an interesting player in that he has switched those modes around, gone from a fairly hard carry player to the more supportive, the Charm Landing, Everfrost Blast, and Aries. As they'll have another crack onto this bot lane tower. Is it third time's a charm?
Well, Pun's gonna have something to say about that. Yeah.
They never get it. Just go somewhere else.
Won't they? Okay. There we go.
They're going to try and get it going. So they didn't know Glory was here, but Pun can buy a lot of time with the healing from the passive. He wins the fight. There's the big Q. Glory just with the big F you. I'm killing you. It's the last thing I do. And it kind of was. And now Fook has the Stolen Soul, has that Heartbreaker, moves on in, wants to get it going, doesn't have access to another copy of the ultimate. There's Aamine throwing out the flamethrower. Really doesn't do a lot of damage without the splash. That was a lovely Braum Q coming out of Ron OP as well. I almost said Raum OP, as that is going to be 4 kills in the blink of an eye.
Yeah, super simple for Cerberus. The beginning of the game was slow, but they kind of controlled everything in terms of pacing for the most part. And Sky, whenever they wanted to make some kind of counter move on the map, it was cut shorter than I think they wanted it to be in any regard. Elio's... What? Man. What? Elio? Ryuk? But...
Elio is not the one to question mark ping.
Yeah, my bad. I said Elio and I meant Ryuk. He's teleporting in front of his support. Elio is dying. He's like, Ryuk, help me. And he's teleporting. Was that a call? Were they like, oh yeah, let's make a dive happen? I don't understand what was even seen there, because they didn't have vision in the jungle to know that people were gone. I don't know. That was entirely too questionable for me to think that was... I don't know what that was. Yeah, let's just leave it be for now, because that was a mistake to say the least.
Yeah, look, we're just gonna pretend he TP'd to go farm a wave or something. Pun so far looking pretty decent as well on this Gwen, kind of showing that, you know, maybe some of our criticisms of him and questions of whether it should be him or Poss starting can perhaps be put to rest. But overall, I mean, game one, maybe just an anomaly. And this is the Cerberus we should be expecting?
So this game is actually the worst that I think Burst the Sky has looked all 3 games, which is unfortunate because game 1 had my hopes so high. Here, Pun is actually getting aggressed against. Is surrounded by 4 members. What's happening on the other side of the map as well? Because Rift Trail got dropped. That should pull a tower. Drakthar somehow snuck that in the
big
mix.
Win, actually.
Yeah, it's a huge win in a couple of places, but they lose their mid tower for it. So.
Yeah, but gold-wise, I think they do well there. They kill the
right.
Gwen, which is not worth the most, but they also get an objective bounty.
The problem is that you have everybody on the other side of the map when a dragon is going to spawn in only 3 seconds.
Well,
that is
I mean, Ryuk should have TP. He hasn't used it for
no.
That's an Infernal Soul secured.
Yes.
SpaghettiOs.
The game
Sky,
is
I think you have just filled your pockets with SpaghettiOs, and now they are dropping all over the floor.
Yes, it's a very bad position to be in if you're Sky. Almost certainly, there's no way that you can outscale this team now. Jinx is already on 3 full items, and the Aphelios isn't even on 2 yet. But throw an Infernal Soul into that, there's no damage to match. Like, it's not even comparable at this point. Any kind of damage that can come through. There were moments where Sky looked like they had some intention at being able to match a lot of what Cerberus was able to do at the beginning of the game. But again, they got cut so short on so many of their plays that they weren't able to make like this thorough response that they really wanted against Cerberus. And it was it's the painful aspect of Cerberus just kind of being a very good team and knowing what they want to do so often that when you're contesting them in terms of macro play, oftentimes they're going to be able to win out a game like that. Not to mention there's been individual performances. Yado's had some great plays. Artemis has some great plays. Run-Up, he's been fantastic on the Braum in this game. But really, it's a combination of both. But again, Sky has just had no answers this game.
Yeah, I mean, this has been the most one-sided of our 3 games. I don't think that's particularly controversial to say, as this is just Cerberus looking absolutely insurmountable. Yado has a huge flank. The hook will come out. It's a lot of CC. Can he go gold? He can't. He actually just dies. Now Pun deep in the back lines, whipping out those needles. They do a lot, but they are down a man. Can they actually turn this one around? Ryuk is going into Mega Knight, gets 3 into the wall, Rebel. But the wallets are beginning to come in. Drakthar charging forward. Does he land the Spectral Maw? Of course he does. He gets the reset as well. Throws out the hook. And Viego's bringing them all to the Shadow Isles. As he steals away the guns of Aphelios, they take down the inhibitor. And they are looking for a game. They are looking for a series.
It's going to be easy enough for them to, I think, at least wrap up 2 of these towers here, if not just anything more. Drakthar is going to try to say something about it, but yeah, it's going to be really difficult to hold. The health bars are kind of low. Yeah, I'm not going to try to pressure this right now. Oh, there's a chance!
No, but there's a teleport.
Yeah, and Artemis is still there. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's